Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We believe life is about how we react. Hey everybody, thanks for listening. I am Kyle, and you are listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We wanted to remind you that we are going to be at Global Jeans. I think you've heard us mention it before, but we're excited. September 18th through the 20th is in San Diego, California. So we hope to see you there. Reach out if you're going to be around. Sean, I think you have an Uber story.
Oh, man, do I ever.
To tell us about. Yeah.
All right, so, we've had similar stories before. So this one is not new. It's just new in a different way, I guess. So a little while back, I'm in Los Angeles, and everybody knows UCLA is where I go often for my FA-specific stuff, right? My neurologist down there, Dr. Susan Perlman. So on my last trip, I'm hanging out, and I've got some time to kill before my flight, so I go to dinner somewhere near the airport, maybe 7 or 8 miles, which we all know, or if you don't know, I'm going to tell you, in Los Angeles, 7 or 8 miles is like a 3-hour drive. Like, it's ridiculous because of traffic. Anyway, I finished dinner, and I hail my Uber. I'm going to go from dinner to the airport. So in all, it's about a 15-minute drive. Even though it's not far, it just takes a little while to get there. So the Uber guy...
It's like half a mile, and it's 15 minutes.
Yeah, right? Yeah, probably wouldn't even 7 miles. Probably like 3. Anyway, the Uber driver is super nice, very friendly. We start off by just talking about life. He's, what brings you to LA? What's your story, essentially, right? So, of course, I don't know about you, Kyle, but I don't throw everything out there at first. I find it sort of cocky or self-promoting if I'm like, oh, I'm here because I have a rare disease and go through the whole story. So I kind of do it piece by piece. So I'm just like, I'm involved in rare disease research. And I just kind of bait it a little bit, if you will, or keep it surfacey because maybe they don't care. Maybe they're just asking to be nice.
Yeah, you're trying to feel out the other person at first, right?
Yeah, without totally forcing my entire story on them. So he indulged. He keeps asking, oh, what do you mean research, or what part do you play, or whatever. So eventually, it's all out there, and I'm like, I have this rare disease, Friedreich's ataxia, research, no cure, no treatment, so I'm here to help in the research process. Okay, cool. So then this guy, of course, we're only in the car now for 5 minutes. We've got 10 minutes left. The entire rest of the ride was basically him telling me that he believed I could probably heal myself if I just went to a holistic approach, forget modern medicine because it's all a conspiracy anyway, and I should probably eat organic foods and just heal myself, which I don't necessarily disagree with. I'm okay with that. I find value in organic food and eating clean and maybe some holistic approaches. So I'm not disagreeing.
But it's not the answer.
Yeah, especially for a genetic condition, right? It's not...
Yeah, we know the cause of this disease, and eating organic is probably not going to change my DNA.
Right. I mean, that's good for you, but it's not going to fix my problem. So, of course, I have a choice to make. I could either argue or just get out of the car when time is up. So I'm in my head, I'm like, okay, I don't remember exactly the entire conversation, but I started to say, well, it's genetic. Kind of alluding to the fact that organic food probably isn't going to help that. But the guy insists on just keeps going. So I'm just agreeing for the sake of being complimentary and ending this conversation really easy when we get to the airport.
Yeah, and it's easier for you, right? Like, you don't want to sit there and try and...
I don't want to get worked up. I don't want to make my blood boil. So I'm just like, oh, yeah, okay, good idea. So anyway, the whole point, I walked away with learning a lesson. The guy, I don't believe, really knew a whole lot of what he was talking about. But that's beside the point. Ultimately, what I learned, if you want to get somebody to your objective or push your agenda, it is so much better, I think, to ask questions that lead people to your point of view. So unlike a politician, like this guy, and demanding, oh, this is the way, you gotta try this, pontificating your point of view, maybe ask, oh, have you tried any holistic approaches? Have you tried eating all organic? To me, that's not saying it is the answer, but it's simply it would be opening me up to a different perspective or a dialogue. So all that to say, hey, I don't know the Uber guy's name, but I have zero respect for the man simply because he spent the entire ride preaching to me about holistic medicines, and as if it was something I hadn't thought about before, and as if it was going to be the end all. So, don't do that, people.
No, I like your prescription for the situation because it is a situation that every single person with a rare disease has been in before, multiple times, right? And so I'm definitely, well, you know what, it's still going to be a difficult situation for someone preaching to you, but I will definitely use your prescription next time I want to get somebody over to my point of view. Yeah.
I
like that.
Yeah, that's been a life lesson for me lately too, is instead of telling people what I want to do or what I want to say or my idea, is to ask questions that maybe promote my way of thinking, not in some incognito way to manipulate the conversation, but to introduce a different perspective without demanding a certain point of view, if you will.
Right. And you know what? You might learn something that changes your mind.
Totally.
By asking this question.
Totally.
Oh, wait, that makes sense. Yeah. All right. So, Sean, today what I would like to talk about is that the fact that I think a lot of the value that we see in ourselves is how we perceive other people seeing us, right? I think I think it's just maybe human nature or something that we're influenced by other people. And most of the time, it's how we perceive other people seeing us.
Influenced by what we think other people think.
Right, exactly. Right. So I think it's just really valuable to recognize that and realize that maybe if we think somebody thinks that we're lame or whatever, like when you're walking through that, remember that you told a story a while ago about a restaurant that you were in and somebody said you were drunk and all that. So from now on, you probably walk into that restaurant thinking, oh my gosh, everyone thinks I'm drunk because I can't walk straight. However, they might not even be thinking that. But you are making that up in your own head, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's important that we recognize that, and be able to create our own thoughts about what people think about us, I guess, right? Go ahead.
Eliminate. Who cares what other people think about us? Ultimately, And I think this idea, where I think it's going, I see it tying in quite well to last week's episode. Talked about this moderation mentality, or kind of getting out of your comfort zone. You're pushing the limit is something we talked about. And I think when we are so concerned with what we think other people think about us, whether it's true or not, we are essentially putting our own limitations on ourselves. Because I guarantee you, Kyle, for me, going into the restaurant or the bar or the event, if I think other people are thinking a certain way of me, I'm going to act differently than if I'm with my friends and I'm thinking about what they know of me or what they perceive of me. Right. So in a way, we're just limiting ourselves by what you're talking about, this idea of, what we think other people think.
Yeah, no, totally. I like how you put that, because we're putting an artificial limitation on ourselves that totally could be removed by us. Like, it's on me to remove that limitation. It's not someone else's fault. Like, I am thinking it is in my head. No, that's on me to make sure I'm thinking correctly about what people might be thinking of me. And you know what? Why not always just go with a little more positive spin on it? Like, I think we mostly tend to think that people think we're a jerk or an idiot, right? And why not think the opposite? Like, why not think that people think we're brilliant or cool, really good looking or we're super cool? Yeah. But so I think this relates to disability as well. Because I was recently at an FA community retreat. I was in the pool with a bunch of people and two other friends, and there was a ball in the pool. And so we started throwing it around and to each other. And
I'm already nervous.
And as you can imagine, Sean, it was a total nightmare. Like most of the time, the throw would not even go near the person we were trying to throw it to. And if it happened to be a decent throw, there was probably a 1 in 10 chance that we would actually close our hands at the right moment and catch the ball, right? Yeah. And for our listeners who don't know what Friedreich's ataxia is, which is the disability that we deal with, it mainly one of the main symptoms is coordination and balance. And so, when we would go to catch
thereof.
Yeah. So we would go to catch this ball, and most of the time we would miss and just fall into the water. But it was so much fun because we knew on the other end of the transaction of this ball going back and forth, the person on that end, on the other end, had the same disability that we do and had the same mentality and wasn't thinking this guy's an idiot for not being able to catch this ball.
Sure, they were familiar with the issue of limitations.
Yeah, and so I think it's important to just to recognize that we had so much fun because we were with people who understood the situation and were in the same situation. So I feel like part of it is being able to monitor your own thoughts about what others think about you, but also another part of it is to find your people and to be with people who truly understand you. I think that's a really important thing, but I also think it can be a little bit of a slippery slope. Because we get comfortable with a very specific group of people, and then all of a sudden we lose touch with the outside world, and we're not as effective in the world because there's a certain mentality or something, right? Or maybe culture that is different in the FA community than in the greater society at large, right? And so you have to be familiar with both to be able to operate in both places. Does that make sense?
Yeah, or at the very least, willing to explore. Like, maybe, you talked last week, you had no idea what to expect in China. Maybe no idea what to expect in New Zealand. So maybe you weren't familiar, but at least you're willing to try, to check it out, to see what it's all about, to figure it out as you go. And I think that's a helpful perspective to have, to have that mentality that says, I don't know what the limit is. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what people are going to think, but who cares? So let's see what happens. Let's figure it out as we go.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think when you walk into a situation, Roland, whatever you do, you gravitate towards the people who are understanding you, and you don't pay attention to the people who are ridiculing you, or maybe that don't jive with your sensibilities. Maybe ridicule was too strong a word, but anyway, I think once you get over the hump of what we talked about last week of your getting through your comfort zone, then you can navigate that situation, and you tend to gravitate towards the people that understand, and that you don't have to worry about what they think about you, right?
I think you make a good point, and I like the idea of the conversation. And maybe it's not even necessarily just about your people or your tribe. One thing I'm thinking about while you're talking is, sure, my friends know what to expect of me, but maybe when I'm in the airport or I go to a new restaurant or I'm in front of new people, they have no idea what to expect of me or what's going on with me. But one thing I've learned, and I've seen this come to life, if you will, at work. In my day job, I meet new hires at our company probably every week. And one thing I do when I'm standing in front of a new group of new hires is I lead with my disability, with Friedrich's ataxia. I don't wear it on my sleeves, but I just simply tell them what to expect. And what I've noticed in the 5 or 10 minutes leading up to start time, when I'm walking around the room, I'm paranoid because I know these people haven't met me yet, and they're all probably thinking, oh my gosh, what is wrong with this guy? He showed up to work today drunk, like what? And I'm like, what? How is he in charge? And then once we start, and I explain to people, hey, one of the reasons why you're going to see me stumble or lean on the wall or walk funny is X, Y, and Z. And even though it's just a 45-second delivery, I've noticed that it puts me at ease. Like, it automatically tells people this is what to expect. And from there on, I feel free to walk however I'm going to walk without concern of what they think of me. So maybe it's even beyond just your circle of friends, but it's being comfortable enough to either tell people why, or maybe just be comfortable enough to accept the fact that it really doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and, after you throw that out there, partly it disarms all your people, but also it helps them hone in on why you're so crazy, not just because of the way you walk, but because of, just it's Sean. Like, he's just weird,
Right.
So
totally. This totally makes me think of our interview with Kristen Smedley. And if you haven't heard this one, it's episode 77. I would encourage you to go back and listen to one of my, probably both of our, it's in top 5 for sure. Just a powerful
I agree.
interview. But Kristen, she has 2 boys that were born with the condition that caused them to go blind really early on in life while they were children or even toddlers. In this episode, she brought up a story of a family on one of the sports team, one of their boys or another child. I think it was a mental or learning disability. And the parents were like, I don't want to talk about it. And she talks about how just simply throwing it out there and talking about it really removes the stigma and opens the door up for opportunity to talk about awareness or to how to fix it or what people can do to play a part in it. And just talking about this idea reminds me of this concept of this mentality. Don't stay in the dark. Don't keep other people in the dark either. Maybe just talk about it. Define your ability, let people know what the struggle is, and that alone will give you so much more power and ability to move beyond what you perceive to be other people's perceptions. I feel like I just threw a lot into that minute and a half, but there's so much more power in being comfortable to a point of just simply talking about it or bringing it up. That will allow you to go beyond whatever your limits are or whatever you think your limits are.
Yeah, no, I like it. I think it totally relates because it allows you to define it. And if you're not saying anything about the situation, about your disability, it allows other people to define it. And oftentimes, I think they're probably going to make a value judgment that is not good, right? And why should our disabilities be good or bad? They're not. They just are. It's just part of who we are and how we operate and just stuff that happens. It's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. And I think talking about it, throwing it out there like that, allows us to define it and take the bad value off of it that other people might assign to it, right?
Yep. Yeah, at the very least, it gives us an opportunity to address it, to help change the perspective or remove the negative aspect, like I said, the bad perspective of it.
Yep.
If we're not talking about it and we're not willing to be okay with it or address it or be comfortable with it, then who are we to be mad that somebody has the wrong perspective or perception of us? In a way, I think that's more my fault than theirs.
Totally. Yeah, I love that because, I feel like I started out sort of thinking that, it's on us how we perceive ourselves and how we assign a perception to other people, what we think other people are thinking of us. And I think throwing it out there, like you said, and discussing it and just putting it out allows us to control the situation, and it allows us to understand what this other person actually thinks, rather than just assigning a thought to them that is, good or bad or whatever it is.
That's true.
I like it.
So I know, right now it's an awfully brief episode. It's a somewhat simple, if you will, topic, but I think it's valuable, and I'm really thankful that we are talking about this right now. Even just talking about it with you, Kyle, is helping me redefine my thought process, or it's encouraging me to continue just being okay with telling people. Kind of going back to my Uber story. Sure, maybe I don't go into detail, and maybe I don't talk about the weather on that day I was diagnosed, but I think telling people what I'm up against helps me be a lot more comfortable with being okay with new people or letting people into my life, and probably helps them kind of put down their guard or their perception that maybe scares them or concerns them. So at the very least, I think I'm walking away from this conversation with a better understanding of why this is important.
Yep, I agree. I think also at the very least it helps us refine our thoughts about ourselves and just continue to think about that because I think that's where it all starts with us, and then then we can expand that to other people as well. So I really appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, and I'll throw in this one thing too, because some of our listeners aren't affected by rare disease. I don't think this is limited to disability. What people think about us because of the way we look, or because of the way we dress, or because of the way we love, or because of the way we spend or save our money, all that stuff plays into how we live in ourselves and how we present ourselves, how we act when we're out in public, or what we do, what we say. So I would encourage all of our listeners, disability or not, the circumstances that exist in your life, if you don't control the way other people see you, you don't speak to the perceptions that exist, you're just limiting yourself. And I would encourage you to consider being okay of stretching your comfort zone and talking about why you are the way you are, or why you do what you do, to an extent or to the point of allowing other people to understand who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Well said. I have nothing to add.
So with that, thanks for tuning in today. I guess we're thankful for our listeners tuning in to listening to our rambling like today. So talk to you next week. Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast.
Find us online at twodisableddudes.com and please subscribe on the iTunes. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
And special thanks to our audio producer, Jake Tompkins.
Until next time, keep living with urgency.